so thanks for coming out today. We're excited to be here to talk, again, we're probably the least techie people among this room, so I know forgive us. At the same time, with Perry, we've worked a lot on doing content audits and content modeling, and I'm sure it's not going to be a surprise to many of you, especially working with Drupal. Structured content is king. So we're going to talk a bit more about our experience on why content modeling is critical for a successful site redesign. I like to take the example of a recipe. So I cook a lot, and obviously to get the work right, the end result that you're looking for, you want to make sure that your ingredients are quality. So again, your content is good, is fresh, is not rotten. Also, you need a clear vision. I don't know if when you cook, do you cook recipes that don't have a picture? I always am like, at the same time, I see these words, but what am I actually trying to get to at the end? What is the end result? We're also going to have to know about our user needs, their preferences, their tastes, what do they like, what are they trying to do, what are they trying to maybe avoid in terms of an experience. And obviously there's going to be a bit of technique, but also support. And when I talk about support, really, I love these substitutions. I didn't do anything that the recipe said, and the results sucked. That's really not what we're trying to do with a content model recipe. So all that to say is, again, we hope we can give you some tips and tricks to get that sort of content structure down right to make any of your subsequent development really fit for the future, fit for your users, fit for your organizational goals. So my name is Adrienne Smith. I work as a digital strategist with Evolving Web, and my background is as a librarian. So I like to tell people to be quiet, but I also like to really organize information and make sure it's accessible. People are finding it easily, intuitively. And again, we think a lot about end users, but what's also really important is those content creators, the people who are going to be stuck with the decisions that we've made when we're developing sites.
And my name is Sheppard. I work at the Royal Ontario Museum as web manager, as well as digital properties there, so things like kiosks and on-site experiences. On my first day, we sat down to talk about what my role would entail. That was about 14 months ago. And the very first thing was redesign the entire website. So that was day one. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So we engaged with Evolving Web to help with that. For a little bit of background, the Royal Ontario Museum is Canada's largest museum. It's a top 10 in North America. 18 million objects in our collection, so a very large collection. But really, that's outside the scope of what the website really does. We have a content management system that's directly involved with our collection items. So really, the elements that really matter for this talk today, we're a field research institute. So there's a lot of information coming in that we need to disseminate through the site. In addition to that, our mandate includes engaging with the public through events, learning opportunities, research, and educational resources. So very specific content types, and just to give you an idea, this is what the Royal Ontario Museum looks like to some extent, but this is what our website looks like currently, right now. And some of you are probably looking at it thinking, wow, that's awful. I'm looking at it thinking, wow, it's awful, but not probably for the reason that you think that it's awful. Those events that are posted here on the right, they're actually one type of event content, and the only type that's actually connected to this calendar. It's also not accessible. It breaks when you go onto mobile. It doesn't interconnect with any of our other content. Events do not expire. So the reason I found out about that, somebody showed up 7 years late for an event that was occurring because our events also don't have a year associated with them. So we have all kinds of problems with the site, and as you can imagine, decided to redesign. Now, the original goals at the top are the ones that were decided on before I started. So upgrade the tech, 7 to 10, pretty obvious. Brand alignment, of course, and improve the user experience, pretty generic. As we got into discovery, we very quickly found content audit, reduction, refresh, start to bring content together, really understand it, refactor it, consolidate our content types, and automate syndication within the site. So when I talk about content syndication, I mean across our specific website. This is what we found. We have deleted 1,500 pieces of content. That is 50% of our content since we started this content hub. We have 60 plus content types, 40 active. So, yeah. Replication all over the place. And then you can see these other numbers, but essentially what it comes down to is up to possibly 100% of our content was problematic. 50% deleted, 50% had not been updated in over 24 months.
So only one way to go, we hope. Yeah, so what was really important when we were looking at this, as Perry said, it was a bit of a mess. And we thought, obviously, we're Drupalers, we're going from D7 up. We really have to look a bit more closely at our different content types. What are their attributes? What are the relationships between those content types? And what taxonomies are we using? So for us, this was pretty straightforward. But for a lot of different parts of the organization at the Royal Ontario Museum, this language doesn't really mean much to them. So our challenge became, how can we sort of get people together and say, look, when we mean content type, we're just talking about an entity, a concept that exists in the universe of the ROM. So whether it's an exhibition or a gallery or an object in one of those collections, we wanted to make sure that we had distinct boundaries so that people could start thinking in terms of, how can I structure this content? What attributes are going to be used to describe it? What's going to be important for us as an organization, but also for our users when they're sort of looking through, is this event going to be good for my kid if they're in middle school? Is this going to be included in our membership, or do I have to pay something additional to get access to this exhibit? So again, those relationships too make things, as Perry said, a bit more easier to automatically syndicate. It didn't make any sense for content editors to say, hey, we have a new exhibition, I'm going to manually enter the address of the gallery in which it's found. So lots of opportunities to consolidate and to streamline, but we had to make sure that, again, everyone at the organization understood what we were talking about. So with that in mind, again, it would have been very simple, take an export from the back end and sort of start working in Excel, but we thought, let's go a bit visual and really ensure that we're connecting the dots, and everyone who's really out there responsible for creating content can really see what we mean. When we say an exhibition as a content type, look at all these attributes, look at all these relationships, and it was a really great exercise to get people sort of thinking, hey, wait a second, it's true, those attributes are coming across all our different content types. These things are similar, these things are different, and this is why. So again, it was really a good starting point for us to first go with the sort of front end. How are things actually happening today? It's difficult. We sort of see those opportunities for optimization, for refactoring, and then we get into more of the Excel. So again, rather than going line by line and sort of losing sight of the bigger picture, we were to start saying, okay, our content types, what do they represent conceptually? Where are those similarities structurally? How are they being used on the front end? So what entities are going to have a relationship? I want to use them in combination. And then again, it's always good to say, okay, this is how we thought it was. This is the current state. What's actually being used? Because we were running into things, as we saw, so many content types. And I think one taxonomy had 198 terms, but something like 87% of them had only been used once. So right away, that's a flag to say, look, we've gone a little bit too far in the folksonomic, and everyone can do what they want. It's really time to reel things back in and make sure, again, that we're designing for the future and to make things easier, not harder. So all that to say, well, we really hoped it was going to be beautiful. At the same time, it was a good reality check. We were happy to sort of see that there, because not only did we have a good idea of the current state, we were already starting to define, okay, where are we trying to go with this? As Perry said, the objectives for this redesign in terms of decluttering, optimizing, refactoring. So that really was, for me, the sort of aha moment. We started to say, okay, we know what we have. Let's throw that out the window and think about, what is the ROM actually doing, who are they trying to serve, and what's important to their different audiences and those who are publishing content. And this sort of visual map, for us, it's something that's, any team can make one. It's super simple, just mind map it out, but it was really the major artifact that we were starting to socialize across the organization and get people really to start building those connections and seeing right away, oh, wait a second, I'm seeing this audience taxonomy on these 4 different content types. opportunity to line-on-one, and again, make sure that we can at least start provoking those discussions so that we can get to something that, again, is going to work for the organization today, but also help our growth, our evolution in a bit more of a holistic way, rather than as we get caught up in our day-to-day. It can be very easy to say, hey, the learning team asked me for this, I'm going to add a new content type. Hey, exhibitions, they're having this promotion, great, throw it in. So again, a good example of sort of taking a step back and a bird's eye view, and then proceeding with, again, each part of the rebuild.
So if you can go back on here. This is actually just a small portion of the work that Adrienne and Dawn did for us. It's actually quite a bit larger, but I do want to focus on this. So what I hadn't said at the top is that, of course, nobody wants to go through all of their content. It's not a fun job. Nobody actually cares at the end of the day that you did all of that work. What they're looking for is a result. The result is, in our particular case, after literally thousands of hours, is that we identified that project type is actually something that we can use for learning content, for events, for children's programming. And what we found across the board as we were going through this process is that different business units were describing exactly the same thing in different ways, and as a result, as Adrienne alluded to, the tech team started building out different content types, even though ultimately the result is the same thing. So really what a program is, starting the project, programs are a consistent use of something that holds a bunch of other things, right? So a program can be ROM after dark. Now you can't really see that, so let's zoom in. So in our current iteration, all of this information is entered every single time a new event happens, and it doesn't, like I said, doesn't automatically come down. There's a lot of cross-platform promotion that happens, so every single instance has to be taken down or updated every time there's a new event. Not really great in our current structure. So as we move through the process, these patterns started to emerge. And what we found was that these departments were describing exactly the same thing because their business processes were aligned. You go to learning and they say, we're going to develop a program. And that program is going to have a number of lessons. And that's how we're going to approach it. You go to marketing and they say, we're going to have an event. And it's going to be called ROM After Dark. And it's going to be a series. And all of the events that occur are going to fall under the ROM After Dark series. It's exactly the same thing. All the data is the same, all the relationships really are the same when you get right down to it. So, we've remodeled that. And now what we have is this. So, going from something that kind of looks like this, that is all manual, to this, which is almost all automatic and automatically syndicated across our site. Now, why are we talking about this in 2024? This is super basic, right? Get your content right, it's a foundational element of your site, but nobody does it. And particularly for institutional sites like a museum that grow over time, you basically just inherit everything that's happened before. So going through this content audit has really helped us to, again, reduce our content, but refactor it in an effective way so we can move forward. And really, this is essential if you want to go through a digital transformation. So all the talk about AI and how AI can help and everything else really requires a good foundational element like this if you want to leverage it. Again, another example, same structure. So it's using all the same elements and just presenting them in a new way.
Yeah, so again, as it's no surprise to this audience either, there's garbage in, garbage out. If your content is garbage, you really can't expect to get an amazing result without maybe a lot of effort and sort of that behind the scenes. So our goal was really to make sure things were working on the front end, but that back end experience was not compromised either. And essentially, as we said, it can be difficult to negotiate with bunches of different stakeholders or to say, you know what, this is my territory, I'm just going to stay here. but they're really great opportunities when you're able to get up a bit higher level. And we think, again, it's something that's so important because this work is never done. So again, why not put in place the right foundations and ensure when you're building things up, don't wait for a migration. You can start at any point, and obviously the longer you wait, the more content, the more pain you might be encountering. But there are lots of different ways to say, okay, we're going to start here because these things are clearly different, and then see what you're actually going to discover in terms of any other similarities or opportunities to optimize.
It's actually a great point. So our content review and our content audit is obviously driving the redesign, but we actually made it a requirement to update the current site content as part of the migration process. So we are automating much of the migration where we can, but the content lock was actually last Friday. So everyone was required to make their edits on the current site so it was reflective of the best content practices that we could get to within this current model. So throughout the migration that's going to start next month, the automated process obviously is not going to have all the data that we need. So we'll have lots of blanks. We'll have a team that will go through that and add the additional data to make all of those connections. But once that's set up, we have very high expectations. And what you can see ultimately is that much of the content here, once it's in place, will just start to fill in across the site. All syndicated, all automatically. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there's a little button to make this thing play, but no, not that one.
Yeah, and I'll just say a couple of the key takeaways too. Again, these artifacts are super simple. So whether you're working with whatever collaborative tools, we think it's, again, something that's super accessible, and you don't need a lot of fancy processes and tools to do it either. And for us, it really helped us not lose sight of the forest for the trees, think about things a bit more holistically, and also as those who may be members of the more technical team's development, you have a really big role to play, and I think it's a nice reminder at least to ask questions, push back a little bit, and do the most you can to really socialize these different more underlying concepts around structured content so that they're going to make sense. And again, you're going to start getting a lot more proactivity from the different parts of your organization, and really identify those synergies, things that are already aligned very well. And if you need to do custom stuff, at least you'll have isolated it and really understood directly what use case it's connected to. So we're super excited for the impending launch of the site, and but we know that it's really under the hood where it looks good.
Thank you. There's a question slide, so I just can't get there for some strange reason. So do you have any questions? And sorry, before questions, one comment, particularly because it's the tech talk, I strongly encourage you to leverage schema.org as much as possible. Many people, far more intelligent than I have, been looking at that for years and years and years, modeling different content types and making sure that there's a schematic specifically for them. So if you are not familiar, please make yourself familiar. It's a fantastic tool, and it also opens up new opportunities for your content. If you follow structured content for events, for example, Google picks those up automatically, or at least they can be picked up automatically, as in several other news articles, things of that nature. So, any questions?
I guess, piggyback on that, in addition to schema.org, are there any other Drupal-centric opinions about structuring your content types and things like that?
Repeat the question, please.
Sorry, yes. The question is, any other suggestions aside from schema.org specific to Drupal in structuring your content types?
Honestly, I'm going to open it up to the room. I think you guys may know more about the Drupal tech modules. Anyone else have an answer to that question? Yes, please.
Well, it bridges on schema.org, but my colleague Jake Rockowitz is developing the schema.org blueprint module that will turn schema.org schemas into Drupal entities.
Yeah. So there's a whole module, and yeah, Jay did some fantastic work. If you didn't see it, the 2023 presentation at DrupalCon was fantastic, and There are, I think there are 15 different sub-modules, sub-modules.
But it changes with
Yeah,
it's still an
but
output.
there's all kinds of stuff that you can implement there. It takes a little bit of knowledge, but his talk does a really great job of getting you through like the very like immediate basics. Because some elements you want to install while you're developing and then uninstall.
Schema.org blueprints.
Yeah. The schema.org blueprints for Drupal. Jay Rockwell. Rockowitz. Jay Rockowitz, and that's actually his handle. Any other questions or comments? I think we're, yeah.
Just a quick one. So you have custom migrations that are basically merging your old content types into one. Is that how it's working?
Although I'm not directly involved, I just took a look at our migration on a different project. I think in this particular case, it's going to be like a one-to-one migration. So, and by that I mean, we'll take it one at a time. Because some of these we're going to be able to automatically migrate. Others we will definitely not. Every single piece of content will need to have a human looking at it because the difference is so significant. We're also going to have to set in place a couple of tricks because the required fields on the receiving end are not going to exist when the migration occurs. So just to ensure that when the human starts doing the work, there aren't any hiccups there. In addition to that, because as part of this process, we've identified every piece of the owner of every piece of content. We have a new field that we've created that's basically the content owner. It's just an email address. And every 6 months, we're going to ping that particular individual to say, you haven't looked at this content in 6 months, look at it, save it, and then it's reset to 6 months. Part of the reason for that is the created by field, in particular in this case, could be entirely useless. Because through the migration, it's going to be whatever, admin from whatever it is. Any other questions? Technically, we have 6 minutes before the next session, but we're 2 minutes over, so. All right, thank you.